Alright, so this video will be a guide on how to build Xiangling for the free-to-play player for both main DPS or support. And these two builds vary very differently, by the way. So if you build Xiangling as a main DPS, you will basically not be able to use her as a support and vice versa. So for main DPS Xiangling, we'll start off with that. The weapons that you can use are the Crescent Pike, which is something that you can make from the blacksmith, or now that we have the Dragon Spine, you can also use that, because they both give physical damage bonus, but the text of the Crescent Pike mathematically has turned out to be a whole lot better than the text of the Dragon Spine Spear. But because this weapon is new, you never know what might happen, so maybe feel free to test it for yourself. Just maybe bring it to level, even level 1, just have both weapons at level 1 and see which one does more damage. And now we move on to artifacts. So with artifacts, you can go a few different ways. One way would be to use a two-piece bonus. So we have the two-piece set bonus here and two-piece set bonus here. One is from the Bloodstained Chivalry, where you get physical damage bonus. And the other one is from the Gladiator's Finale, which is the 18% attack bonus. Or if you want to, you can go 4 pieces of the Gladiator's Finale and get the 4-piece set bonus, which gives your normal attacks only a 35% damage bonus. So if we were to ignore the set piece bonus and just look at the main stat alone, it would be HP, attack percentage, physical damage bonus, and crit rate. Or if you're lucky and, for example, you get a lot of the lines of the artifacts that give crit rate, maybe you can go crit damage instead, because that would boost your damage quite immensely. As long as you have a crit rate of over 50%, then it's pretty good. Alright, and now we'll move on to Xiangling as a support. So most likely the weapon that you will use for Xiangling as a support is the Prototype Star Glitter. It used to be called the Prototype Grudge, for those of you who haven't been on this game for a while, I guess. Or yeah. And the reason why is pretty much because of energy recharge, and you really need that because Q costs 80 energy, so it's really expensive. Right, some of the other weapons you can use if you got lucky and rolled them in the gacha is the Favonius Lance, which also gives energy recharge, but it has better text than the Prototype Grudge, because the Prototype Grudge doesn't really do anything. You won't really take advantage of this text if you're just throwing her in to use her E and Q. Whereas with this, if you can quickly get a crit, then you will get extra energy or elemental particles, which will build up your Q. And the Dragon's Bane, which is another gacha item, is also good because this thing will stay in effect when you're not on the field as well. And so as long as you have a character that is applying either Hydro or Pyro, so even Xiangling can use this effect on herself essentially, then you will do even more damage here. And then Elemental Mastery is good on her because her application of Pyro is slow, which means that she will most likely be the character to trigger the elemental reaction. And so Elemental Mastery is for those characters that trigger the elemental reaction. And now we move on to the artifacts. So with artifacts for a support Xiangling, your 3 main focuses, I guess, would be energy recharge, elemental mastery, and elemental damage, which is the goblet. So again, for the flower and the plume, it doesn't matter because it will always be HP and attack. For the goblet, for the sands, you want energy recharge. For the goblet, you want pyro damage, and apparently you can get elemental mastery on the goblet, but I haven't really noticed that. Maybe I just didn't really care about it, so I've always been deleting them and foddering them. But yeah, I don't know which one would be better, so if pyro damage or elemental mastery would be better, so you can check that out for yourself. And then for the circlet, it would be elemental mastery, if I recall. So here we go, we do have the Elemental Mastery Circlet. Yeah, so you can see how the two builds for support and main Xiangling are extremely different, just based off the stat priority. Alright, and now for the artifact sets that work with Xiangling, We can go with the Noblesse Oblige because elemental burst damage will be really good, and then if you're using her as a support, you don't really need to do so much damage yourself, so instead your Q will then give your other party members attack bonus of 20% for 12 seconds. Another thing you can do is, for example, on my Xingqiu right now, I'm using the Scholar set and the Exile set, and that gives a total of 40% energy recharge, so that would be really nice for her. You just get more energy recharge, which means you get to do more Q. And then if you get more constellations of Xiangling, then eventually, let's see, so her C3 gives her Q more levels, which is more damage. Her C4 gives her Q a longer duration. And then her C6 gives the party members 15% extra power damage. So this would be good for somebody like Diluc or Klee. Another artifact set that you could use in conjunction with, for example, Noblesse, so you do the 2P set bonus and get elemental burst damage 20%. And then you can use Wanderer's Troop and then get increased elemental mastery by 80. And so that's something that you can use in tandem. And those are pretty much your options for support Xiangling artifacts. Alright, now lastly we will talk about team compositions for Xiangling, and it's kinda complicated because there's a lot to go into, and so I have a guide on basic team building, and then you can pretty much have a look at that and then apply that to your roster, right? Because everybody has a different roster, and so your team setup will be quite different. But there are some things that I can explain more simply. So that is, for example, this team this is a main DPS Xiangling team, and the reason why I'm using this team is as follows. So Xiangling is the main DPS, so obviously she'll be the one out on the field most of the time doing damage. She uses her normal attacks, right? And so with Fischl, you just put her out and then you will summon Oz to do stuff, right? He'll just shoot constantly electro damage. Keep that in mind, it's electro damage. And then if you use Kaya and then you apply cryo to electro, it equals superconduct. And what superconduct does, oh wait, it's on here, my bad. That's the elemental resonance. Superconduct is an elemental reaction, and what that does is that it reduces the enemy's defense, physical defense, by 50%, I think, 40%, something like that, but it reduces it by a lot. And so that means that Xiangling's normal attacks do a lot more damage. And then also, as a bonus, if you use Barbara and you have her E up, and then she wets the opponent, and then Kaya freezes them, then they get frozen for a bit, which means you get just more CC. And then Fischl will, once again, use Oz to shoot Electro and do Superconduct. So yeah, that's like the idea behind this team, and it's mainly to give Xiangling as much damage as possible. And it also is really good because it has the 4 elements, and so you're able to deal with anything that comes your way in the open world. Another team over here, we have Xiangling, Fischl, Xingqiu, and Qiqi. So if you are lucky enough to get Qiqi, then how this works is it's similar. So we have Qiqi and Fischl to do the superconduct, but then we have Xingqiu instead. So the reason why I like Xingqiu, well, I like this team slightly more than this team, is because, for example, Qiqi, so we compare Kaya's Q, which is the icicles circling him, to Qiqi's E. So they both have a circling cryo thing, but for Kaya, he requires his Q to put it into effect, so it's not as easy to bring out as often. Whereas Qiqi, she can just use her E more often, and then if you have Sacrificial Sword as well, you might be able to use it indefinitely, almost. And then this is the same idea, so 4 elements, but I like Xingqiu a bit more because he deals more damage, and he also has his E, which increases, what is it? So his E increases the character's resistance to interruption. So that means that, you know, you're less likely to get interrupted by an opponent's attack, and therefore you can keep on attacking. Alright, and now lastly, well, not lastly. Alright, now we have the Xiangling as a support. So for example, this team, Pyro Elemental Resonance is very straightforward. You get your increased attack by 25%, so that's always nice. And that's basically it really, like you're just there to make that happen, to give more pyro damage. And then I guess we also have Xiangling doing elemental reaction with Barbara or Fischl. So if you're using the Dragon's Bane, I think it was called, was it Dragon's Bane? No, yeah. So if you're using Dragon's Bane, then Barbara's E will be applying Hydro. Or actually, you know, your main DPS, that's Pyro, will be applying Pyro, and then you get to do your extra damage. If it's Barbara's E that's applying the Hydro, you will also get to do Vaporize, which will then let Elemental Mastery come into play. Or as you can do with Fischl, where if she does Electro, then you will get to take advantage of this, but you won't get to take advantage of this. So actually, what you could do instead is you could maybe do something like this. Right, and so when Diluc is attacking and using Xingqiu's Q, he will constantly be applying Hydro, and then Xiangling's Q and E can then vaporize and then take advantage of the Elemental Mastery. And then the last thing we have over here is again another thing where I like to do the 4 different elements to take care of all the situations in the open world. But the reason why this works is that, so it's again the thing that I mentioned before about how Electro and Cryo equals Superconduct, and so that means that Razor will get to do the bonus physical damage. And then if Kaya and Barbara do their elemental reaction, which is freeze or frozen, then that means that they're frozen, and then if Xiangling hits them with the fire, then it's melt, and melt is a strong elemental reaction. Something like that. Alright, and that is all. I apologize because I forgot to control myself and I might have spoken too fast for you, so if I have, then you know, you can just use the Google thingy to slow down my speaking speed. And I will also post some extra links in the comments section because I found them quite informative and just gives you more perspective on how to build Xiangling possibly. Yes, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy New Year. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh wait. Oh yes, I forgot to do Cloud of the Day. So let's do Cloud of the Day. Ooh. Ooh. You know what? You know what it actually is? It's not the clouds that are good, it's the background that makes the clouds good. For example, I'm really liking the clouds around here right now because they're backed up by the stars behind and it looks really cool. This one's kind of lame though. This one's kind of tough. I think this one's really nice. That one to the top right of Xiangling. And the one, it just faded now. Oh wow, it's extremely fading. Wow, it's so ephemeral. Well, it was a good cloud and now it's gone, literally. But we have a new cloud here, but then we can't see the back of the stars. Yeah, I guess we just captured that moment and it was the good cloud of the day and now it's gone and well, it's becoming morning and wow, everything's so ephemeral and ethereal and in the moment. But yeah, anyways. Alright, cool.